I've asked Billy to share his experience on second part of step 1.
Everyone, my name's Billy. I'm an alcoholic. Just going to set a timer here to keep myself honest. I've been through this process of the 12 steps as they're laid out in the book. The guidance of a step study sponsor who did the same, with a sponsor who did the same, with a sponsor who did the same. And through that process, I found a God of my understanding, and a completely different way of life. And that completely different way of life is based entirely on the fact that this process gave me a completely different way of thinking. My life didn't change much. There's a few outside things that changed for sure, but this gave me a blueprint on how to think differently, how to view the world and the people in it differently. Because that was my problem. Change in thought was my vital spiritual experience, like Jung describes. And this step right here seems easier than it is for me. Long before I walked into the halls of AA, I had tried, I was confident that when the time came for me to quit drinking, whenever that was, whenever it got bad enough, whenever I got enough consequences, when the time came for me to quit drinking, I would be able to quit drinking. I would be able to assert my will. I would be able to put my foot down. I would be able to make a logical decision based on the expected consequences of the harms I've caused. I had no reason to believe that I couldn't do that. In my mind, I had no reason. My history told otherwise, that there were plenty of consequences, plenty of warnings, plenty of things that I said I would never endure, and I still didn't quit drinking. But in my mind, I could make up my mind to quit drinking whenever I needed to. This chapter here wonderfully calls that as a delusion. And a delusion is something I fool myself with. I con myself into believing something that isn't true. And so when I came into this program, it was a concession to some degree, because I had tried a lot of things. I had tried to use my force of will, that didn't work. I had tried to look at the consequences of the pain I was causing my family, my friends. My family and friends were distancing themselves from me. I looked at the fact that I had doctors tell me that my liver shouldn't look the way it looks at the age that I was. I went to therapists. I did the stuff that I thought was going to help me stop drinking, and it didn't. I couldn't. And so I came to AA as a last-ditch effort. And I didn't even plan to stay. This is all probably pretty familiar to the people in this room, this line of thinking here. I don't know what you guys did down here, but I knew it was supposed to be the be-all and end-all of problems with alcohol. So I wanted to know what you knew. Whatever you knew, whatever tricks you had, I wanted to learn them. And that knowledge that I didn't previously have, whatever knowledge you could give me, that knowledge of this condition, once I knew it, now I would be able to make the decision to stop drinking. And this book spends a lot of time, seems to be, this chapter in particular, obsessed with the idea that knowledge of my condition, knowledge alone, is not enough to stop drinking. It's not enough, whatever that knowledge may be. But I was in the knowledge gathering business. And I wish that when I came in here, it was as simple as some people laid it out to be. When I came in here, I needed simple instructions. Let me put it that way. I needed very, very simple instructions. And the very simple instructions I received were, just keep coming, put your butt in the seat, keep your mouth closed, listen, join a group, try to find a sponsor, get active, all these very basic things. And I translated that into the entire solution. Those were the simple instructions that I needed, because if you started talking to me about spiritual experiences and all this other stuff, you would have lost me. And if you told me, if I thought for a second you were going to force God on me, you would have lost me. So I was told simple things. But the fact of the matter is that my disease, as I've come to understand it and had to come to understand it, was far more powerful than any human power, including you, AA, sponsors, sponsees, fellowship, meetings, therapists, doctors, family, loved ones, all those human powers. This disease is more powerful. And so this book also mentions many times, and this chapter leads off with it, it talks about my condition of alcoholism as something which is an affliction of both the body and the mind. And it's that second part that this chapter really hones in on. Thank God it hones in on that part, because this is, in fact, they call it the crux of the problem, meaning the critical point of the problem. I would agree with that. Because I will say that, when I read what Silkworth has to say about alcoholism, there's logic there that I can wrap my head around. He says, look, it's not that you're insane, or it's not just that you're insane. He says that you've actually got a physical problem with booze. There's an allergy, to call it, for lack of a better term. I don't think there is a better term. There's an allergy that you have that other people don't. As an alcoholic, when you put alcohol in your body, you cannot control the amount you take or what happens. And I can look at my experience and say, yeah, I can wrap my head around that. And I can also suspect that the solution to that particular problem is not to put alcohol in my body. Easy. Now, if I could make the decision not to put alcohol in my body, I would need to go no further than the allergy and that solution, and I would be able to manage this disease. And since this disease controls my entire life, I would be able to manage my own life. But neither of those things are true. What I found out and what this chapter hones in on, almost as if it's reading my mind, is it's like, I know you're going to think that because you're in AA and you're sitting in the seats and doing what you think you're supposed to do, and because you know that this alcohol problem is a disease and you can't put it in your body, that information alone is going to be enough to keep you from, this disease from metastasizing, getting worse. You'll have control of it. You can manage it. I know you're going to think that, so let me tell you the thing that none of us can wrap our heads around, and that is that for reasons yet obscure, the alcoholic has lost the ability to control his drinking. I, somewhere along the line, if I ever had it, lost the ability, do not have the ability to make a decision as to whether or not I drink. Now that's pretty significant. It's pretty significant now. You back me into a corner because now I can't use my tricks, my willpower, my intelligence, my knowledge of my condition, doctors, relationships, any of these things. I can't use any of that anymore if you're going to tell me that I don't know when it's going to happen and I don't know why it happens, but there is a mental defect, a peculiar mental twist, strange insanity. All these words that they use in this chapter to describe this thing, because they don't know what it is, they only know what it does. And the best way I think they describe the unmanageability aspect of step one here, for me to understand, and the disease of the mind, is when they say, to the extent, it says, as to whether or not a guy like me is going to require a spiritual solution to this disease, it depends upon the extent to which I've lost the power to control my drinking. Now I have completely lost it. So if I re-engineer that statement, they're subtly telling me you're going to need a spiritual solution to solve this problem. But I digress. What they're telling me and what they say stately there is the alcoholic lost the ability to control his drinking, and it doesn't matter how much I want to quit or need to quit. Despite my need to quit, despite my desire to quit, I cannot quit. Now that is a great description of unmanageability, in my opinion, for me. Because I thought unmanageability when I came in here meant the chaos that happens as a result of my drinking. So when I come in and I start telling my war stories and my drunkalogs, and I say, oh, well, I did this and I did that, and I narrowly escaped death here, and I treated this person, I did all these things, I look at that and say, yeah, that chaos must be what they're talking about when they talk about unmanageability, but that's not what the word means. And I know that because my sponsor said, you're going to look words up here, even if you think you know what they are. And you're going to get definitions for these words because they put these words in here for a reason. And unmanageability doesn't just mean chaotic or unsettled. It means the inability to control or order things, keep things in order, to control. It says, my life had become unmanageable. My life, not my drinking, my life had become unmanageable. And the way my life had become unmanageable is much in the way that I just described. I had to first learn that there was this physical component to this disease that I can't control and I can't change and is only going to get worse. That's bad news. The worst news is that I also have a mind that will betray me at any given moment. I don't know when that moment is. The alcoholic at certain times, when those times are, I don't know, has no ability to control his drinking. So there's my mind at play with me. My mind will betray me. And again, as I stated at the beginning here, what I had to realize, and because of course I got to analyze every step to kind of talk my way out of it, or show that I understand it better than you. My plan was to be here for 12 meetings or 12 days or whatever it took to get through 12 steps and then leave. Obviously, that was the solution. But here I am still now at this stage of my sobriety, poring over the words in this book so that I can better understand my disease. And it never ceases to, and I hope it never ceases to stun me that the disease is this deep. Because every step after this step is done to make sure that I have some power and some ability to manage my life by connecting with a power greater than me. I will never have that power, but I have access to it through the rest of these steps. But when I'm just talking about this step right here, the conclusion, what I had to concede to my innermost self is that this hopeless condition of body and mind that they mention in the foreword to the first edition and then many times throughout this book includes a combination of things that I cannot overcome. I can't control what happens when I put it in my body, okay, fine. But I can't control whether or not I take a drink. I don't have any control over that. Like I can't listen to an amazing speaker from this audience here or someone tell an experience and learn from that. I can't sit in multiple AA meetings, 90 and 90, and learn from that. I can't go find God in a new way and learn from that. No. I've lost the ability to manage my life. If I could manage whether or not I put a drink in my body, then this disease would be manageable. If I could manage my emotions, if I could manage what happens to me, if I could manage everything the way, my thoughts, everything like that, my life would be manageable. But none of those things are true. I'm an alcoholic, my life had become unmanageable. I have a hopeless condition of body, understood, and mind, not understood. But I accept it. It's a hard thing to accept, but I don't have any other choice. Like the men in this story, and I love chapter 3 because it teaches. It teaches in a way that that a thick-headed guy like me needs to be taught. You can tell me empirical evidence. You can tell me these, use great words and tell me these wonderful things, but tell me a story around it that represents what you're saying. And so they give 4 of them. And they talk about these 4 men. And it doesn't matter the details. The conclusion is that each of these 4 men had every reason in the world to not drink again. And firmly believed that because of these certain consequences of picking up a drink and their past experiences, they wouldn't drink again. That's a logical conclusion. Each one of them thought that, but each one of them had an alcoholic mind. Jim's story seems so silly to us, milk and whiskey and ordering 2 sandwiches. Who does it? Who goes in there and orders a lunch and says, you know what, I'm going to have another lunch, right? An alcoholic whose alcoholic mind started working on him 2 weeks prior does that. So I understand Jim. I understand that the decision he made was the way that he could get back to drinking. His mind had been working on him for weeks. That's how it happens. For reasons yet obscure, I, as an alcoholic, don't have the mental capacity to stay away from a drink. And I understand Fred. He's got everything in the world going for him. And he said, why would I drink? I don't want to lose my family. I don't want to lose my reputation. I don't want to lose my job. My kids finally love me. I'm successful. And I don't want to go back to the nut house. So obviously I'm not going to drink. But in he's like, life was better. Jim was miserable, right? Fred, not a cloud on the horizon. Life was going great. Everything was going his way. Suddenly the thought occurred. An insane thought to anybody else, but not to him, not to me. You know, it's funny in this book, it says, it uses a term, one of the terms to describe this stuff. Subtle insanity. How's that? Sounds like an oxymoron of sorts. Subtle insanity. Insanity is a pretty extreme word. Subtle, to me, I thought meant calm. Right? Subtle, easy, calm. Someone that's subtle is not overbearing, not over the top. But I said subtle insanity. Okay, that's one of those times I got to look up the word subtle because there's a reason they're using this. And what I found in my book at some point I did. And subtle, one of the definitions, wait for it, is insidious, wily, cunning. Sound like something? That's how they describe this disease. Subtle insanity. Insidious, sneaks up on you. Wily, cunning, baffling. Insanity. Okay, now you're talking. That's the experience I have with this disease. That's the experience I have with the strange mental twist, whatever it is that puts the idea that a drink is going to be a good idea or puts no idea at all in my head and I just drink. I know that I've been there. I know before I came into this program that one of the things that baffled me the most was that I want to quit. I have to quit. I will quit. I'll put my foot down and I will quit. And I would simply be drunk. No thought occurred. I would simply be drunk. And so there's my example of that disease. I was shocked to learn when I came in here that never changes. And then they start to foreshadow this thing that I didn't want to hear that you guys will discuss next week or the week after. And they say because this disease is as bad as it is, that is a what has to appear to me at first as a hopeless condition of body and mind. There is no hope. I'm not getting around this physical allergy combined with this mental defect thing. I'm not getting past that. I'm not thinking my way out of it. I'm not buying my way out of it. I'm screwed. It is hopeless. It is a hopeless condition. What they end up calling it here, though, in the forward to the first edition, is a seemingly hopeless condition of body and mind because they know there's a solution. So what seems to be a hopeless condition of body and mind, where I'm at in step 1, leads to what they say is a seemingly hopeless condition of body and mind because they introduce a solution. And that solution was hinted at in that last paragraph. It says, look, one more time, we got to tell you this. The alcoholic doesn't have a chance. Me as an alcoholic does not have a chance overcoming alcohol on my own efforts, by my own will, by any human power, in fact. My human resources have dried up. The only hope I have is a power greater than myself. And I know what they're talking about. And I don't want to hear it. I didn't want to hear it. But if I wrap my head around it and I take my experience and I take my licks and I can admit, if I can concede to my innermost self that I have this disease of alcoholism and I believe you based on my experience with it, that this is a condition I'm not overcoming and that a new relationship or a new doctor or new workout routine is not going to get me past it, and there are no more human resources, there are no more human solutions, then I have one of two choices. Keep looking for one, keep doing what I was doing, go on to the bitter end, doing that my way, or accept spiritual help. Now, as distasteful as that was for me at the time, it was the only solution I knew it would work. And as I sit here today, as I opened up with, this disease, this hopeless condition, Sorry, just got a wave of emotion there because it was this hopeless condition that made me want to kill myself. That was my solution, solid one. That led me to a program that told me, it's my 20 minutes, I'll wrap it up here. That led me to a program that told me that my disease is worse than I thought it was and couldn't be cured with what I thought it would be cured with. But then introduces me to this idea of a higher power that I can call God, but it can be a God of my understanding, and I can get it to know it in an intimate way, not by any other means that I was taught or understood or all this other stuff that, again, I don't want to bleed into step 2, but this bleeds me into step 2. This, if I don't wrap my head around the hopelessness of step 1, both bodily and mentally, then I will not come around to believing that I need a higher power. I will not. But if I do come around to believing that I may need divine help, a higher power, power greater than me, then I got a chance. And if I develop a relationship with that power as I move forward, then I get every single promise that's listed in this book. That's been my experience. Thanks for letting me share.